Yo, what's good, YouTube, man? It's your boy T-Ski, and I'm back with another video, man. Today we done with the 90s. Now this is a video by Jimmy High Roller. If y'all know Jimmy High Roller know basketball. So we finna listen to what he gotta say. You know what I mean? Everybody sit back, relax, grab you a, you know what I mean, a plate of food or something. Get you some chips or something. Sit down. We gonna listen to Jimmy High Roller talk that talk. And we gonna find out, is we done with the 90s? Or, you know what I mean, the 90s still good. Me personally, I'm not done with the 90s. You know Larry Bird is my favorite player of all time. So, you know, I can never be done with the 90s or the 80s. You know what I mean? But if you're new to the channel, subscribe, like. I do videos every day, you know? Reactions. If you mess with my reactions, go check out the other ones. I got a lot up, you know what I mean? I do a lot of sports. Hey, if you want me to react to something, drop it down in the comments. I'm going to react to it, bro. That's all it says. It's that simple. Let's throw some likes on this video. Let's get turned up, man. We on the road to 10K. But enough talking, man. Let's get into the video.
My brothers, we are in the midst of a civil war. The age-old debate of past versus present has reached critical mass, and sides have been taken. A revolution is taking place, and we're losing good men. Old school versus new school. Back in the day versus modern day. A story as old as time itself. I tried to ignore this bloodbath, but just when I thought things couldn't get any worse.
I ain't gonna pause this too many times, I promise, but if it's any old heads watching, bro, I got a question for y'all, bro. I'm not gonna lie. Is it any player from like 2000 to now that y'all consider top 10 all time? LeBron, the obvious one. Do y'all like y'all rocking with Kobe? Counts as 2000. Kobe, you know, Shaq and them, you know them, like, cause I see y'all top 3, y'all like to put just Jordan, Bird, Magic and stuff. Y'all don't think nobody from today is nice? You know what I mean? How y'all feel about Anthony Edwards? Is he the next Jordan? I don't think he is. No hating. I don't think he is. I don't. Yeah, It's not about Anthony Edwards.
It all got so much worse.
We done with the 90s.
Film of NBA games from the 80s and 90s coming to light, showing that the good old days were in fact not that good. This whole time, the punishing defensive legend was actually just a bunch of plumbers camping out in the paint looking for someone to hack. Shots clanking off the backboard, players running around aimlessly, wreaking havoc. And worst of all, Michael Jeffrey Jordan, the supposed greatest basketball player of all time, didn't even have a left hand.
No left hand is crazy.
What is going on? Have we been lied to about
basketball really not have a left?
In the 80s and 90s? Are we really done with that era of hoops? Or are we being deceived by lowlights, misinformation, and cherry-picked clips? Well, I think I've got an answer. And some of y'all ain't gonna like it.
Who ain't gonna like it? Hey, today when he said the no left hand for Jordan, bro, I ain't gonna lie. Them Jordan mixtapes we didn't watch, he got a lot of left hand. So I know that's false off the bat. You know what I mean? I know he got a lot of you don't know how Jordan he be going crazy. But
just around the promo code special, Jimmy 10, or you've any coded still around any orders. 5 simple words that have completely divided fans of the NBA. I've seen well thought out video essays, hard-hitting analysis, testimonies from past and present players talking about their experience in the league and how it's changed over the years. And none of those things managed to do what these 5 simple words have done in just a week. Soon enough, the clips came rolling in of players from that era dribbling off their feet, throwing up air balls, and putting together moves that you might see at your local high school's JV game. So, for whatever it's worth, here is my long-winded take on this whole discussion.
How you feeling? Jordan Bird.
I want to begin by saying what this discourse has taught me more than anything else is that NBA fans today never actually took the time to go back and watch games of the past. Brothers, I have been harping on this for years, begging for fans of the game, whether you are new or have been watching for years, to just go back and watch full games. Not highlights, not clips, full-length games of eras from the past. And after seeing this discussion devolve into where it is today, it is clear to me that most people never take the time. I'm seeing countless fans have this sort of awakening as they're watching films of these old games.
I've never actually went back and watched a full throwback game. I never did that before. I don't think I ever watched a replay of a game that already happened before. I don't think I ever did that. Hey, if y'all got a classic game that you want me to react to, it might be a long video, but I'll do it. You know what I mean? If y'all want me to react to a game, let me know. We could go watch the film. We could go really see what they was doing in them 90s.
As if the footage was buried or lost, and it's finally being unearthed for the world to see. It's been right here on YouTube for the past 15 years. You mean to tell me the same fans who chime in with a full-blown thesis on the GOAT debate never spared the time to even watch the games they were referring to? I guess that does explain a lot. Now, I'd like to think I'm somewhere in the middle on this whole discussion. I have said on multiple occasions that players in today's NBA are simply more skilled than players of the past, which has resulted in bigger stat lines and higher point totals than ever before. It's not the defense that has gotten worse, it's the offense that has gotten better. You know, that whole spiel. But I also have an appreciation for the greats that came before and how incredible some players of past eras were. In fact, I almost feel like I'm hallucinating seeing this 90s basketball slander campaign unfold in front of my eyes. It feels like everyone's perception on the age-old debate changed literally overnight. I know that's not the case, but after seeing all of this play out, it sure feels that way. But today, I'm not just gonna show you some cherry-picked clips or unhinge this narrative even further. I'm gonna show you real film, real data, and proof of how we might actually
I got a question for y'all. Would more players from the 90s be able to play in the 2020s? Or more players from the 2020s be able to play in the 90s? That's a tough question. I'm not even gonna answer that. That's a question for y'all. Let me know in the comments, bro. Y'all got 90s or 2020s? Who, you know what I mean? Who fit more? Who fit better?
Done with the 80s and 90s. And of course, if Michael Jordan really had no left hand. Spoiler, he did.
We knew that though.
Now, I have been an advocate for the modern players are better than players of the past movement for quite some time now. In fact, as crazy as it is for younger fans to say Michael Jordan was trash, it's just as absurd for older fans to say the game hasn't evolved and gotten better over the last 30 years. Because that's all this debate really is. Young fans versus old fans, or fans that watched this versus fans that are watching this. But objectively, players today are much better than they were in the 80s and even the 90s. Specifically, the lower end of the talent pool in the NBA today is vastly better than it was in the past. I think great players would be great in any era, but with the spacing, the shot making, the emphasis on offense as opposed to defense has made the depth across the NBA today just way ahead of where it was in the 80s and the 90s. There was, without exaggeration...
And that's a great fact right there. Like, you don't say the players, the top players today and the top players in the 90s. It's, you know what I mean? 90s might have him. 90s might have him. But if we go down to like the bench players, the role players, six mans, 2020s, they got the bench go deeper nowadays. You go deeper into your bench nowadays because it's more guys that can do more things for you. You know what I mean?
Guys in the NBA throughout the 80s and 90s that were on NBA rosters just to accumulate fouls and sit in the paint and be big. Some of these players were offensively inept, and that was okay because their role was not to create offense. But in today's NBA, where offense reigns supreme, there is no room for these players. Now, you could and should go back and watch film of games, not highlights, from this era and see just how limited the skill sets of some of these players were. The shot making, for the most part, was limited to set jumpers, slashers coming downhill for layups, and big men trying to muscle their way to a bucket down low in the midst of of what appears to be a wrestling match. Catch a player off guard with the double team, and they immediately pick up their dribble. Simple things like guards turning their back to the basket 20 feet out instead of creating space off the dribble. Even players looking down at the ball while trying to get out on a fast break was very common in this era. And these aren't lowlights or cherry-picked incidences.
No.
This is just what the game looked like 35 years ago.
No.
But even without film, nearly every metric suggests modern players are more capable of players in the past. Free throw percentage was worse,
they do look trash
three-point
right there.
percentage was worse, turnover percentage was higher, they used to shoot more free throws but still ended up with far less points. Now, this is not to say that this era of hoops was trash. That's just disingenuous and flat.
Now I like that free throw stat. Let's talk about this free throw stat. They shot more free throws and scored less points. What, like, it's nothing you can say about that, you know what I mean? Because you getting a free throw, the time stops, and it's a free shot. Let's keep that, jot that down.
These were the best players in the world at the time. It was just simply not as good as what it is
today.
today.
They couldn't shoot.
But maybe there's another layer to this that needs to be factored in to really understand why these players were not as skilled as the players of today.
Hey, y'all want to know my theory on why the players are more skilled today? It's because we already seen the old people do them moves. You know what I mean? When I was in 4th grade, bro, I used to watch Allen Iverson highlights all the time, bro. You know what I mean? By 5th grade, I had to cross over down. He was just getting it down when he would start crossing Jordan. I had to cross over down packed already in 5th grade. You know what I mean? So we seen them do it. So we start doing it at an earlier age, and all that stuff they was doing, that's easy. And now we doing new stuff. And now we got, you know what I mean? It's just a bag deeper. That's all it really is. It's more fries in our bag. You know what I mean? It's more fries in our bag.
Now, despite this being a very relevant topic for years, the idea of rule changes and how these changes have affected the game still remain a mystery to some. Players were a product of their era and the rules of their era. The first step to discovering greats of the past is to watch film of them play. The next step is to gather and understand the context of the film you are watching. When you see a 6'9" Magic Johnson go flying down the court with what looks like kind of a stiff dribble, you may think the man has no bag. But my friends, Magic Johnson did have a bag. But the rules in place at the time only allowed him to reach so far into it before he got called for every violation in the rulebook. Consider the fact that any move where your hand wasn't completely on top of the basketball was considered a carry. No 0 steps, no gather steps. You get 2 steps, and anything more was called a travel. No backward shuffles to create separation. No lunging into players to draw easy fouls. Here's a clip of Danny Ainge hitting Kevin McHale with a hezzy
They call it travel on a Euro?
And the man thinks he just witnessed witchcraft.
But when practice sessions were completed, some of the most competitive competition began.
Double dribble! Double dribble! He did too!
He's talking about double
clips
dribble.
of players getting called for travels and carries, doing moves that are very typical and allowed in 2024. 90% of the moves you see today, the very method most players generate their offense, would be called for some sort of violation 40 or 30 or even 20 years ago. And this isn't just some cop-out or excuse as to why these players of the past weren't doing this stuff. The rule changes are real, documented pieces of NBA history. You can literally look them up. The game got looser, players grew up and shaped their game around these looser rules, and now they have free reign to let their basketball bag run wild.
Right.
But that's kind of the point. Players of the past didn't grow up practicing 25-footers. They didn't work on a dozen moves to create separation. They played in offensive systems that focused on the team, the collective, schemes and sets that resembled something closer to college basketball, where ISO possessions were few and far in between, so they never developed an arsenal to counter these situations. The rules of the time limited their game, which resulted in them having a more limited skill set than players today.
I low-key like 90s basketball better, though. They like to swing that ball and play team ball. I like basketball like that, you know what I mean? I don't like a win-it-all type player. I like somebody that's a team type of guy that can eat within the squad, you feel me?
If Larry Bird grew up with a three-point line, he might have been the greatest long-range shooter ever.
Yeah, Larry had that thing.
And as a result, he didn't shoot a lot of threes, and he wasn't as efficient as the best shooters today. We can sit here and assume these players of the past might be as capable as players today if they were playing under the same rules and conditions, but they didn't. And I don't think we should assume that. The fact is they played in a different time and they became a product of that time. But that's not to say the game was trash back then, or that the superstars of these eras couldn't compete in today's league. Now, as time goes by, I think it's easy to forget just how long ago 1980 was. 44 years ago, if my math is correct, which is in fact a very long time ago. In 1985, Magic Johnson won an NBA title, Larry Bird won the league MVP, and Michael Jordan won Rookie of the Year. That was 39 years ago from today, which is the same exact amount of time that has passed from that 1985 season to the year the NBA was founded in 1946. Look at these clips. Do you think these players could compete with the likes of Bird, Magic, and Jordan? Let me answer that for you. No. But take the best players of the 80s and 90s, and could they compete in today's league? Absolutely. Give these guys some credit. Watching this today is the equivalent of watching this in the 80s. And yet this product is vastly closer to the basketball we see today than this product was to what fans were witnessing in the 80s. In fact, we can use different superstars as sort of a cross-generational measuring stick to see just how stiff the
Hey, y'all think the players in the 80s and 90s they was looking at Wilt and Bill Russell was like, bro, I will give him 50. You think they was saying that though? I don't feel like they was saying that, bro. Oh no.
Competition has been over the years. Larry and Magic played Michael, who played Kobe, who played LeBron, who has played the players of today. And nowhere down this timeline was there any real jump or fall off in production or level of competition from one era to the next. Each era had their stars. Those stars crossed paths with stars of other eras, and no one era was clear-cut ahead of the other. If the 80s were so bad, then why did players of the 90s have to wait for those guys to get old and retire to have a shot at winning? And if the 90s were so bad, then why did players of the 2000s not win until those guys retired? We don't need to assume that adjacent eras could compete with one another because we actually saw it. MJ struggled with some of the guys that came before him, Shaq struggled against Hakeem, and Kobe struggled against MJ, LeBron struggled against guys like Duncan and Dirk, and players of today have struggled to get past some of the older players in the league who are a product of the previous era. Now, what we shouldn't do is jump 3 or 4 eras at a time, ignoring entire decades of evolution and saying the game back then was better or even as good as it is today. At a certain point, the knowledge and wisdom that comes from actually witnessing decades of NBA history, like some older fans have, becomes skewed and watered down by nostalgia and a generational bias. Superstars are superstars because their game transcends the era they played in, but they also played in an inferior league. These two ideas are not mutually exclusive, and although generational talents of the past would do just fine today, this same logic does not apply to the vast majority of the league throughout the 80s and 90s.
Not trash. 2v2, who y'all got? Penny and Shaq. 11-4. That's my final score.
So if the 80s were inferior to today's league and the 90s were inferior as well, when did the NBA become not trash? Well, it depends on how you look at it. Ironically, I think there's a pretty clear distinction to the skill set of players before Michael Jordan hit his peak and after. For example, the early 90s and late 90s, although being in the same decade, were massively different in play style and skill set. Think for a second about the fact that Magic Johnson was still in his prime in the early 90s and Allen Iverson was entering his prime in the late 90s. In less than 10 years, basketball became a massively different game. By the late 90s, the players who grew up watching Jordan fly through the air and slice up defenses were in the league and were reshaping the role that perimeter players played. Guys like Kobe Bryant, Allen Iverson, Ray Allen, Stephon Marbury, Grant Hill, Tracy McGrady, Vince Carter. All these guys came into the league around the same time and were products of what they saw MJ do throughout his career. Players with a skill set that more closely resembles what we see today than it did to the skill sets of players of the 80s and even early 90s. This is where I think most fans might make the distinction of when the league...
Hey, okay. Question for y'all. The 96 draft with Kobe and AI and them, or the 03 with Bron and D-Wade? Give me... Ooh, I come back. Somebody remind me later. I don't know.
Really took a leap not in competitiveness, but rather play style. You can go back and watch these guys play, and it's not too different than watching an NBA game today. Or you can point to the shift in play style that happened in the late 2010s, after Steph Curry redefined what makes a great championship caliber player, and the league adjusted to this new three-point heavy, perimeter-focused style of basketball. Similar to Jordan, the kids who watched what Steph was doing in the mid-2010s emulated that style of play, tailored their games to it, and are now in the league doing things that only Steph could do a decade ago. So if we're done with the 80s and 90s, where can we look back and no longer apply this era tax on these players? I think most fans would agree that the turn of the century is where the modern era of hyper-skilled players began. You can say objectively that this era was not trash, and most players of this generation would do just fine in today's league. But if that is the case, then modern NBA fans are holding a ticking time bomb, and they might not even know it.
Victor. Hey, bro. Do y'all think, like, is in 20 years, it's just going to be, like, just Victors all through the league? I don't think it is. I think this is a once-in-a-lifetime generational player right here. I don't think it's going to be two more 7'4", dribble, shoot, defense, you know what I mean, type of guys, bro. This is a once-in-a-lifetime type of guy. You feel me? They get him some help in San Antonio, he might go down as a top 5 big to ever play the game of basketball. You know what I mean?
When we are older and a new generation of NBA fans claim our favorite players, the guys we grew up watching, are not as good as the players of the future, what will you have to say? Right now, there is no one in the world who can shoot like Steph Curry. But inevitably, there will be. And eventually, there will be many players who can shoot like him. His records will fall, his percentages won't look as good through the lens of 2040, and although his legacy will be cemented, his actual game will be put into question. And based on the arguments...
Bro, y'all think Curry would drop to 20th in all-time made three-pointers? No shot. No shot. It might be somebody that come along that can shoot as good as him. But it's not going to be 19 people. And if it's 19 people, that means we in the 3,000s already. You know what I mean?
I'm hearing
they got robots
why past players were trash. We will have nothing to say that will change their minds. We know that Curry was the first to do what he's doing. He is a pioneer of the modern NBA. We have context to back up our claims. But if we aren't willing to hear older fans out today, what makes us think younger fans will hear us out in the future? Mark my words. There will be a day when young fans will go back, watch film of LeBron, and say he couldn't compete with players of the future. In fact, it's already happening. Fans saying he has no bag. Younger players putting up bigger numbers than he ever did. Skill sets a bit deeper with games that look more polished. It's all fun and games now to crack jokes about past eras. But our day will come too, and it ain't gonna be pretty. But Giannis could only run and dunk. Your era was trash. Y'all had a dude who couldn't get 2 feet off the ground running the whole league. You can scramble to pull up clips and show the numbers, but their minds will already be made up. This is what...
Nah, this is what they gonna say though. Like this is crazy. This is crazy to hear right now, cause Jokic is crazy. Giannis is different. You know what I mean? I don't think I'm... Old heads, is this how you feel when y'all hear somebody young saying that? Bro, Jordan ain't had no left. Jordan ain't play nobody, bro. Larry and Magic ain't really play nobody. That's how y'all feel? Because that sounds like a crazy statement to say Jokic was not good. LeBron is trash. LeBron is trash is crazy. LeBron has no bag is insane. That's a diabolical sentence, bro.
Why I think it is so important to have genuine, thought-out discourse about the game if you're truly a fan of it. But to all of the older fans out there, you kinda started this whole thing. For years, we heard y'all badmouth modern players, saying the league is soft, players today couldn't compete back then.
I do call
back in my
Brian
day,
soft every
real
day.
men played the game. Y'all cannot be mad that some fans are done with the 80s and 90s when y'all never even gave modern basketball a chance. Sure, a lot of fans never took the time to go back and watch the greats of the past, but let's be honest for a second. Older fans don't watch games today. They catch a stray clip on Facebook of LeBron flopping, and like an echo chamber of disgruntled old men, they just start firing away in the comments, agreeing with one another. Y'all asked for this. I've been watching the NBA since the mid-2000s. Kobe, D-Wade, McGrady, Iverson, Shaq, Nash, those were my guys. But I can acknowledge those greats and say they were incredible while also acknowledging that that version of the NBA as a whole was not as refined or as good as it is today. Now, will I be able to make that distinction in 20 years when some snot-nosed brat tells me my glorious king was trash? I'm not so sure.
Glorious King is that's meaty.
Now, it's time to once and for all take a real close look at this accusation that Michael Jordan did not have a left hand. I felt like I was having a bad dream when I first saw this claim, but unfortunately, I was not. I feel like no one actually believes this. This is just some high-level trolling. But in an effort to stop this nonsense from spreading any further, I have no choice but to take these accusations seriously. So I selected 8 random games ranging from Michael Jordan's rookie season all the way up to the mid-90s, and play by play gathered all of his possessions throughout these games, charted when he went to his right, when he went to his left, and what those possessions resulted in. And here is what I found. Jordan made a move with his left hand or his right hand 227 times. Of those 227 moves, 121 of them were with his right hand, and 106 of them.
That's almost 50-50. That's actually good for like a right-handed person. You know what I mean? Because you're supposed to drive right. You're supposed to go to your strong hand. He almost doing it even.
Them were with his left hand. Of the 121 right-handed moves, he passed up or got fouled on 54 of them, so I didn't bother charting those. 65 of these moves resulted in a shot, in which he made 63% of them and only turned the ball over 2 times. Now, moves that he made with his left hand resulted in a pass or him getting fouled 45 times, while 55 of these left-handed moves ended up in a shot, in which he made 51%, and 6 moves resulted in a turnover. So based on this data, Jordan was definitely more comfortable going right, especially near the rim and even on mid-range jumpers. He struggled a bit in comparison to his right whenever he pulled up off of a left-handed dribble. But overall, Jordan went to his left 47% of the time. And although it was his weaker hand, he was still above league average even while going to his left. But 8 games in 350 minutes of basketball is a relatively small sample size. So I looked into it further and found this. A detailed breakdown of Michael Jordan's shot chart and shot tendencies in 3 seasons from 1990 to 1992. 126 games and over 4,800 minutes in total, tracking exactly what Michael did on the court for 3 seasons. And here's what the data shows. In total, Michael made 1,074 moves in isolation, going either to his right or to his left hand. 48% of those moves were with his right hand, and 52% of those moves were with his left hand. When going to the right, Michael shot 61.7% on 410 shots with 15 turnovers, resulting in 1.38 points per possession. When going to his left, Michael shot 61.3% on 421 shots.
Okay, so it's about the same percentage. When you know what I mean, he do a move to the left, do a move to the right. But that left, he was a little loose with it, so he turned the ball over a lot more. But he's still getting buckets. But he right-handed though, so that don't make him not have a left. He's just right-handed, you know what I mean? And I understand making more moves to the left, because if you hoop, y'all don't, you know what I mean? I don't know if you hoop or, I don't know if you hoop or not, but I do. You know when I'm come here, I'm breaking him down, I'm going to have it in my left, and I'm going to cross him to the right. So I can, you know what I mean? It's easier to just, when you do like a pull-up or something, it's easier to have it in the right already.
With 36 turnovers resulting in 1.31 points per possession. So even with a much larger sample size, Michael not only had a left hand, he went to it just as often as he went to his right and was nearly as proficient with his left as he was with his right. Now, for some context, throughout this 3-year span, Michael made on average 4.4 left-handed isolation moves, or in this case, isolation possessions, that resulted in 1.31 points per possession. Now, here are some prolific scores from this season and their overall tendencies and efficiency in isolation. Keep in mind, this data includes both right-handed and left-handed moves from these players. And now here is Michael Jordan with just...
Hold on. Okay. So after Michael Jordan, Kawhi Leonard? DeJounte? Like, I know Luka, Shea, yeah, Embiid, yeah, Harden, yeah. DeJounte Murray is crazy, though. Like, is he underrated?
His left hand. So, yeah. I'd say contrary to what has now become popular belief, Michael Jordan had a left hand. And I cannot believe we had to dig into the data to come to this conclusion. I think the overall idea that the 80s and 90s were a far less skilled time in the NBA compared to today is probably fair. I mean, you'd be crazy to think the game hasn't evolved in 4 decades. But to say the league was trash back then is just wrong. I think more than anything, it's the style of play and the way basketball games would unfold back then that really throws some fans off when they go to watch film of these old games. It's like looking at a box score from the mid-2000s and thinking everyone sucked because the games finished with final scores in the 80s. But the players weren't bad, it was just a different game back then. It was slower, more methodical, more team and scheme-based than it is today. And similarly, I think you could say the 80s and 90s had its fair share of bad basketball. But that doesn't mean all the players were bad, especially the superstars of those eras. That was just the state of the game they were playing in. I think some older fans have a skewed perception of how good the game was back then, but I also think they just genuinely liked that style of ball regardless of the evolution of the league. In 20 years, there could be a dozen players around the league that shoot like Steph Curry, but I doubt we will hold the same appreciation and affinity for those players as we did to the guy who pioneered this style of play and did it during the good old days. In the 90s, no one looked back at how the league was in the 60s claiming it was better. And so realistically, we shouldn't be looking back at the 80s and 90s claiming the league was superior than it is today, or even just as good for that matter. A lot of these ideas that favor modern basketball are becoming more mainstream as fans dive deeper into these topics and add context to narratives that have been floating around for decades. But I think this push to be done with the 80s and 90s is a bit overkill. We want to add context and nuance and knowledge to these discussions, not remove entire decades from it altogether. Sadly, I don't think any of this has or will change anyone's mind. This revolt against old school ball was either confirmation of what you already thought, or this entire discussion is just blasphemy to you. Are we done with the 80s and 90s?
Nah.
Maybe, but for the sake of the game and the greats that paved the way, I sure hope not.
Yeah, let's go do it with the video, man. So are we done with the 90s? Or are we not? I don't think we are, bro. They was nice back then. You just got to understand. It's a deeper, you know what I mean? It's deep. It's deep. It's deeper than basketball, bro. You got to understand what's really going on in the 90s. They was trying to play team ball. You know what I mean? Then as time started going on, you see players start like to play hero ball. But nowadays, these 2020s, I'm not going to lie, it's getting back to team ball. You see the super teams, it's not working no more nowadays. It's not working. You got to play team ball. They going back to the 90s. But that's the end of the video, man. If you like, drop a like. If you made it to the end of the video, you a real one. I love you. Like, subscribe. See y'all tomorrow. I got another vid coming. Drop what y'all want me to react to in the comments. With that being said, my guys, I'm out. Hood.